In the history books of Matbara, the recorded incident is very famous and well known. It is said Andruisha. His name was Zahran. He was rare, never used to a constant place, was always traveling, and so on. While he was traveling, he arrived in the city of Zahran and stood outside the city as a hut. And he lived in it. One day, out of necessity, he went to the city. They agreed at that time. The daughter of the king of Zahran was returning from a walk in the garden. There were arrangements. Luxurious and has value. On the other side of the road were women and children gathered. The people who were standing to receive the princess and the poor Zahran also stood with them. On my side. One time, the princess was afraid of them because of the strong wind. Sterling's palate suddenly rose. And here is when the poor man's gaze fell on his face. The beautiful princess wrestled with her lover from the heart and soul. Happy, he arrived. He followed the princess's vehicle to the royal palace and remained standing outside for a long time. When the vehicle entered the palace, Cad asked who? This palace. For whom? And whoever was riding in this province, people said, this is the royal palace, and she was. In this province, Her Highness Princess went for a walk in the orchard. Listen. This poor Zahran arrived directly to the king's council. Where the council was. The king is standing. The poor man entered the council and stood before the king and presented. He said, King Zahra, ask this poor man what he wants. The minister went to the poor man. He asked about the reasons for his coming. Poor Zahran without any fear or intention. Dodan explained the whole story and said, I want to marry the king. All king. To give his daughter in marriage. Hearing the poor man's words, the minister's anger increased. But because of the hostility of the royal court, the rest remained silent. Return before the king. And they stood silent. From the expression on the minister's face, the king thought he was mourning. Two different things. So the king ordered the minister. Without wanting to tell me. In fact. Minister performers of arts presentation. Where he built his article. This poor man. My jealousy does not allow me to repent with my tongue. When he insisted. King Mararan mentioned the minister's words as he said them before the king. Hearing. This king remained silent for a little while. He lowered his head. So Zahran prayed for the poor Imam and sit close to him. The king asked about his lineage. So why? The scholar of Balai, the lineage of the poor, said. O Dervish. Get your mind together. Because of, I swear by your lineage. He is not satisfied with being with you at the time of marriage. Lapti. But be patient a little. That's the first thing we're going to do. Princess. And the princess breathed. Then I will give you the answer. And here is the poor man. After ransom, the king's answer. He walked back to my hut. If he waits. Zahran al-Fakir, 3 or 4 days. Then he attended his council. King of Zahran. After greeting, he sat down. The king of Zahran was satisfied. By marrying his daughter to Zahran al-Fakir. But Ozira was not. He is prepared, in any case, to accept this matter. That's the royal daughter. She who is a princess marries a poor man. Around the king a lot. That the minister understands them. But when the minister did not agree to this. The command. The king said. I miss this poor man. Now how do you fish? If it is otherwise. How can I refuse? Feel us. There is a lot of damage in this case. The minister answered. Where it can be channeled. This, leave it alone, you won't say anything. The rest. It's all me Andrevi. The minister said. I will not accept this dervish in any way. Method. After that, the minister prepared plans. Exit the royal treasury. A gift that was unparalleled and rare. Imam has her blood. Poor Zahran. The minister's article. If you want, you can marry a daughter. The king. It has one condition. The condition is that the mother be numb. Others like this. Until he becomes a husband. Halai can be prepared, princess. Al-Zahran al-Fakir heard the minister's words and said, okay. This is it. What is required? The minister said. Yes, exactly. We want another mother like this. Take it, Zahran al-Fakir from the minister, promising an arbitrator. Who is divorced there? From? The poor man knew that such rare gems were extracted from fire. So the fire arrived. After arriving at Al-Wafa al-Nari, Shadab, poor Zahran began to let his Nahari water out. So he, God willing, ban a fake person except that place. And he asked, Darwish, oh Darwish, God has accepted your labor. Now stop your hand. God has sent you so that I may wish for you. Tell what you want. When he heard, this is very poor fairy Zahran, he greeted the Zorg and said, Oh Abdullah, why should I take care of work? If you need a moment. Also, I am afraid of my failure. Al-Bazorg said, Oh Darwish, if a tamarisk of the river takes out a so-and-so and it dries up, then this is fire. It is best to pay attention to your desire so that God Almighty will fulfill it. Between the poor Zahran and his whole story was in front of the Bazorg. Al-Bazorg said, It's still here, by God's command. I will gather a great heap before the ambush of the Most High, so that you will still be able. On her pregnancy, poor Zahran sat silent. Then the Zorg disappeared. At the same time, it happened in a fire. The waves rose and a river began to flow. All groups. Their heights are very many and they stand on the bank of fire. Then it came from the unseen, the hidden. Oh Dervish, take from here as much as you need. Which you want. The poor Zahran prostrated and Tashkar prostrated. And it started to break. All the styles have a high stone. Nataya took out 10 after. The one who came as much as the pied. It was very rare and precious. So it is. It cannot be found in any king's treasury. Zahran hid the poor man. All these items are in a bag. He set off towards the city of Zainan. Night anyway in a hut. And in the morning after finishing prayer and jobs, Zahran al-Fakir attended the king's council. Put those, the 12 supreme ones, which he had hidden in his bag in front of the king. And he said, I only asked Neil for one lot. But God, he gave me a lot of blessings. Even if you see it, you won't be impressed. Your help. At present, these are among the 10 pearls you have chosen. I have kept it at your service. So take it. And fulfill your promise. Bakir al-Malik. She was confused when she saw al-Kalali. He took the money. He began to consult with the minister. What should he do now? The same minister Martin returned again. O great king, for a king to marry a poor person is not possible. This will be a great insult to the king. The king said, This is correct. But I feel my life is in danger. This is a very accessible dervish. He seems to be a friend of Azza. If he calls upon me with an evil supplication, nothing will happen after that except regret. The minister was excited and got up from the king's council. He entered the palace. After the king entered the palace, Dale Wazir Darwish said, You brat, what madness are you in if you wed her? The king's daughter, the princess, is married to a broke man like you. The dervish answered the calendar. O oppressor, take it away. To lose I washed my hands of my life. But you ask for safety for yourself. You consider God to be present and present, but then you break the promise. You are yourselves. You hope that I will come with this banner. He told the guards. Beat him severely and drive him out of the city. And never let him enter the palace. The guards caught the poor Zahran. They beat him severely and took him out of the palace. Zahran the poor, confused singer. They kept rows upon rows. Only a few minutes had passed since this had happened until the king's daughter had a hard time in her stomach. Sana'an the Jat and Fadbur Philail. But no benefits of any kind occurred. In what he sees, the princess died. A great noise occurred. In the end. But what could happen now in terms of remorse? After that, the princess was prepared and shrouded with a large robe. Tents were set up around her grave on all sides. It was here that you arranged for things to be burned with a pleasant smell. There were countless copies of the Quran appearing there. Many people were keen to protect the princess's grave. But after a lot of time, keep all of them and the guards away from the grave. They looked keen from afar. And on that side inside the hut, the fire of Ashki was burning in the heart of the calendar Dervism. He did not feel any peace of mind. When midnight passed, served the sweeper and passerby of the cemetery tents. He reached the grave of Mehbooba, digging the grave, and the last of her body. After that, the grave was restored as it was. He carried the princess's body on his shoulder. He returned to the hut. When he arrived at the hut, put the princess's body aside. And he will think. What should he do? At this time, two people arrived at Babcock. That person was a Maran storyteller who came from the city of Zahran. But, because the city gate was closed, he was wandering here and there. He did not understand that the city gate was closed. Where does he go now? To spend the night, he was looking for a refuge. Farah Anora emerges from the hut. Then it came to his mind. This is the certainty of Makam Darwish. So they walked towards that direction. When poor Zahran heard the footsteps outside the hut, it crossed his mind. Their world, Josie, greeted you. Who came to know the truth of the situation? And if I merge this thought? He went and hid in the basement of my hut. So what when the door opened? Another person came inside. There wasn't anyone there. No sound and no trace of anyone. He looked here and there. Farah is a very beautiful girl. They looked at her for a long time. What about when he examined her medically and lost her pulse? I feel like you are the crumbs. She had a stroke. Those crumbs were still a greeting. Immediately, Hakim Nashtra arrived. The princess's body was slightly torn open and looked bloody. After a short time, she returned to consciousness. When the princess saw a strange man in front of her, she was greatly frightened. The wise man asked. Yes, all honesty. How did you get here? The wise man answered. My daughter, I don't know anything. I came from a faraway place. It's been a long night. I was looking for a place to spend the night. You saw a light in this hut from afar. So you came here. When they came here, there was no one there. I started looking here and there and then I saw you. When I examined you, I understood your illness. So I started to Gura. May God grant you healing. Just go here. Now tell me how you are. Who are you and how did you survive? From the prevention that happened to you. At this time when the dervish looked out from his hiding place, he saw an old man with a white beard and a very pure face talking to the princess. The dervish left immediately. He greeted the wise man and sat in front of him. The wise man immediately understood that this was the owner of the hut. The wise man asked about the reality of the situation. Immediately the dervish and the calendar. The whole story from beginning to end. The rest of the wise man is silent and humbled. They think about doing it. Then he told him that God would resolve the matter for good. After that, I poured too. That is, the poor dervish Zahran and the princess, who had now become husband and wife. She lives in that hut. After a period of time, God Almighty gave them a son of good conduct and beauty. It was dark over my mother's image. He was extremely intelligent and articulate. And one day, while the king of Zahran was once walking near that office, where Aden ben Zahran used to seek knowledge, he was usually the king of Zahran. When he passes close to an office, he visits him a little. So this time too, when the kingdom began. My job is to get the young children to wait. It was the turn of Han. We returned to Zahran. And when it was Hazrat Aden's turn, we went to Nazaran. And when the office was ashamed of us, the king saw the beauty of this child and felt good. So he obligated it. He could see his daughter Surah in my face. The king immediately called the child close to him. He lifted it into a room. Kiss the child's forehead and sit him with him on the Al-Hassan. He took him to the palace. When the king asked the office teacher, "This pen is the son of someone?" The teacher replied, "This is Ibn Calendar, a great man. He brings him to the office every morning. It takes him a while to paint." The king said, "I take this pen with me. And when his father comes, I assure him that he is." And he sent it to him to the palace. The teacher said, "Oh, where the sons are very good." When the king took the flag with him, he presented it in the palace. He presented it before the queen. He said, "How much she resembles Surah, who was 2 daughters of the deceased, this pen." So the queen took the child in her lap as well. She kissed him and hugged him to her chest. She treated him with great love and compassion. And on the other side, when the calendar dervish arrived at school, when darkness fell, he saw the teacher from afar. So he ran to him and tell him everything. When poor Zahran heard this impact, she became a very talented singer. We set off immediately towards the king's palace, where the king was waiting for him. King Zahran seated the poor man with great honor and respect. The poor man did not see any of the many potions, but he knew immediately that he was the same poor man, which he heard mentioned before. Zahran al-Fakir said to the king, "The purpose of our coming is only to take my son, because his mother loves him very much. If you don't remove it immediately, she would give her life." The king said, "Name Mahad al-Kalam. And from which family does it end? For God's sake, tell the truth." The poor Zahran explained all the matters and protection. In front of the king, he spoke. When the king heard the reality was true for his daughter's life, he immediately thanked God and was satisfied with God's will. The king returned with his queen to the sanctuary and tell her this good news. He mentioned his daughter's condition and life. Then the king immediately rode with the king on his boat. He took Zahran, Adna, and the queen with him, and we headed toward that hut. When he saw the princess coming from the hut and her hands, I ran for joy, and I fell at the oldest of them. I greeted with respect. The king and queen hugged their daughter to their chests, and everyone cried tears of joy. Then he took the princess and they returned to the palace. The king gave his daughter and son-in-law a large allowance. It is a perfect choice in order to live a comfortable and royal life. But the couple refused to accept this gift, because simple serpents filled with love, it was the most valuable thing to them. So the princess and her wife left the royal serpents and prefer snakes of simplicity and poverty. This decision was a reason for the king and queen to rush. But they were both happy. They respect their choice. He was made king with the approval of his daughter and son-in-law, Sultan Adnan ibn Zahran, his crown prince, because he did not tire of him from any wife or male. A few days later, the king died. Sultan Adnan ibn Zahran Jalsan became on the throne in his grandfather's place. He ruled with great reason and justice, but his heart was only for the king. It is said that everything goes back to its origin, and his heart was Sultan Adnan ibn Zahran. It was also nothing more than poverty and dervishism, where his soul found peace. It came in the life of Sultan Adnan ibn Zahran, an important matter when he was in the family sleeping on the throne. Suddenly, the roof of the house began to burn. Sultan woke up immediately and called him. Whoever walks above comes the answer. They invited me to look for him. The Sultan said, I become angry. You idiot! How can beauty walk on the ceiling? But the answer came. You ignorant person! God is all-powerful and all-powerful. If he wants, he can send the camels to the market as well. But you are the one who is dressed for sleep. They sleep in bed and cry out to God. How great is this foolishness! This word entered the heart of the Sultan to a great depth. At the same moment, the Sultan decided in his heart that he will abandon all royal pleasures, live and rest and head to the desert. With this decision, Hayat chose al-Darwish. because his heart has now become sincere in seeking God. The Sultan and Adnan ibn Zahran left. All the greatness of the Sultana. He chose Hayat al-Darwish. On the way, he met Kirian and gave him his expensive clothes. Not by the ease of his reward, the simple and hypocritical. As he walked and walked, he reached Banjan. Then in Clon la Gaelgar. When the Sultan and Adnan ibn Zahran left the Sultan. And out of heaven. He resided on the bank of the Shadab River. At this time. Outside the princes he is and the puppies he is at his request. They followed him until he got there. At that time. The Sultan and Adnan were the son of Zahran. Kair's stitches were very worn and simple. When he saw the crowd of people he asked, "Who are you people and how did you save them?" This question. He bears witness to his simplicity and dervishism. Because he has now turned away from worldly greatness. Hazrat Adnan ibn Zahran said. For those who ask him to return to Zenan. Abdin will not return. Why did we insist so much? He threw away the needles of the rag he had sewn with his own hands. In the Shadab River. And he said. If you take a needle out of the river. I will accept your words. And they returned to Jinan. Around people a lot. But they couldn't get the needle out. Hazrat Adnan ibn Zahran said. Yasma Nahar. The needle that I have is with one of you, so let him bring it to me. Immediately 100,000 fish came up the river. And with it were needles of gold. There was a needle in the mouth of one fish. Hazrat Adnan took the needle. He bid farewell to the princes and ministers who came and said. I have no desire for the king of Zenan. Come back you. And from this effect. It shows the truth about the Darwishism of Hazrat Adnan ibn Zahran. The absence of desire is for the worldly self. Condolences friends. From which country are you watching this video? What do you think of this story? Share your opinions in the comments. And subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching. And see you in another story. May God's peace and mercy be upon you.